we're in this little tiny house in Flemington, and like Friday after school, I'd come home, pack a bag, and a limo would pull up to the house. I'd jump in the limo, go to Newark Airport, and then fly to wherever my dad was that weekend. So Detroit, LA, whatever. I'd come back and go to school on Monday and be like, fellas, you're not going to believe the weekend I just had. Because the Rolling Stones are backstage and this person and that person. And I'm a motorcycle courier, and most of those guys are all English and they're crazy and they love to drink. We were watching the show, and it was the first time I've seen the band since my father passed. So it was definitely emotional. And then Bruce got on stage and he's like, Jason, come on up here. And I was like, what? And it was like...
You didn't know ahead of time?
No.
Hello, welcome to 90who10. I am your co-host, Jessica Entner, and my other host is...
Dan Eisenstein.
And today we have a very special guest. They're all special. Jason Federici is here.
Yeah. I am.
You are.
And thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So you and Dan are the connection, because I've never met you. You're lovely, though. He's saved me 5 times already in like a span of 2 minutes.
He's good like that.
Myself.
He's good like that.
So how do you guys know each other?
So we actually met at Coachella.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had a friend in common, and we met at Coachella.
It wasn't David Faustino.
No, it wasn't. It was not David Faustino.
Just getting that out of the way.
No. But we met at Coachella, and we've sparked a friendship, and we had some other things in common, and we both love motorcycles, Harley Davidsons.
Yeah.
Did you guys meet in line at for the restroom like most girls do? That's where women become best friends.
Well, he and I were guests of some friends of ours who we were in a very special camping location.
Oh yes, I've been there. Yep.
And we were camping next door to each other. And by the way, this is, I use camping loosely. This is like in RVs.
Glamping.
Yeah.
On the polo
and
field.
we are, and that's, we stuck up a friendship.
So how long have you guys known each other?
Oh, 10 years maybe?
At least.
Yeah. 10
what
years.
Coachella was it?
I mean, it's like 10 years ago. Probably.
Who was playing?
I don't remember who was playing, but we've been to a lot of other shows
been to a lot.
Together too. We just were at Power Trip together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a great show, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, that was fun. And that's not really my thing. Those like...
Was Metallica?
It was Metallica. It was Guns N' Roses, Metallica, Judas Priest.
Yes.
Trying to think of who the other bands were.
Tool.
Nice.
And AC/DC.
AC/DC.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic.
AC/DC was fantastic.
Yeah.
That was a great show. We had a good time.
That's like Day on the Green in San Francisco.
Yeah.
But I got a story for that later. So you guys struck up a friendship at Coachella.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And have since stayed in touch. But you have a musical background as well.
I do. My father was the original member of the E Street Band.
I mean, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, it was definitely cool.
I mean, not just an original member, he was in the band for 40 plus years,
For
right?
40 plus years.
Yeah.
So he was one of the original members.
Yes.
And continued on. Yeah.
Yes.
And you grew up in?
Flemington, New Jersey.
Yeah.
So I was mostly raised by my grandmother while my father was out touring. And Flemington's like a little town, not too far from Pennsylvania, but like a historic town. Yeah, I grew up in the same house that my father grew up in.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
As you're talking about this, a picture that I saw of you on Facebook is like flashing into my mind, where I think you had like red hair and you're riding like a BMX bike, like a Diamondback or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And you had like the 80s socks, I think, that went up to here.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a cool childhood.
Yeah, for sure.
Was your dad on the road a lot of it?
Yes, he was. Yeah.
I sympathize.
Yeah.
Did you go on the road as a kid?
I did. The first time that I remember going like when I was young. My mom would come and scoop me, and there was a lot of like my mom, they were both young when I was born, like 19, 20 years old.
Uh-huh.
And so kind of that was the reason for me being raised by my grandparents, a little more stability while they're kind of, going through being hippies and doing their thing and growing up and all those things. So, but my mom, I remember, would come and get me, and my grandmother too. We would go to shows together all the time. But I remember like being little at like these shows as they were kind of like in these old theaters and stuff. Like I'm pretty sure like Trenton and, you know, different places like that as they were kind of coming up.
Yeah.
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 And then,
so were you like in like relation to when you were born, was your dad already in the E Street Band at that time when you were born, or is that kind of like just right after, or is that?
Yeah, he played with Bruce in this band called Steel Mill. And I think there was
That's
Child
such an
before
East
that.
Coast name. I mean, really, that's just like straight out of Flashdance.
So you were born kind of before the success really happened, is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool.
I actually have the concert poster from the day I was born.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So tickets were $2 and
that's awesome.
It was a Thursday night.
And you know, you're a musician yourself.
I am.
So what was the first instrument that you picked up when you were a kid?
Well, because they were around the house, it was keyboards, and I play keyboards and accordion now.
Right. Yeah.
Accordion. That's an interesting one to pick up.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Again, I think because they were just around the house.
Are you any good at it?
Well, you know what it is? I have a very good ear for music, so I can play what I hear pretty quickly. As far as technically, like I don't read music very well.
Yeah.
I'm much more of a feel person than a technical person.
I get you.
I mean, your dad made the accordion cool.
Yeah,
as I'm
for
thinking
sure.
about it, right? Yeah.
So music was a big part of your upbringing, obviously.
For sure.
Yeah.
I've always loved music. When I was young and my father was away, I've of course missed him and stuff like that. But like we would get the records and I'd play them, you know what I mean? And it was a way for me to kind of be close to my father, to hear the music and things like that. So it's something I've always appreciated. And then when Born in the USA came around when I was like 13, 14, then me and my father really spent a lot of time together, and I went on most of that tour, which was a lot of fun.
That must have been fun. And I'm assuming because there's a lot of guys in the E Street Band, and they probably all had some kids. Was that like a big family? You guys were like,
I was the only kid.
You were the only kid.
Yeah.
Wow.
I really was spoiled.
That's awesome.
It was something.
So, without, divulging too much, how was that as a kid? I mean, or like a young man on tour?
It was unbelievable because I was in this little historic town in Flemington, and when Born in the USA came, it obviously became a very big hit and stuff like that. And they went from like a regular band to like the band, especially at the time. So we're in this little tiny house in Flemington, and like Friday after school, I'd come home, pack a bag, and a limo would pull up to the house. I'd jump in the limo, go to Newark Airport, and then fly to wherever my dad was that weekend. So Detroit, LA, whatever. I'd come back and go to school on Monday and be like, fellas, you're not going to believe the weekend I just had.
That's awesome.
Because the Rolling Stones are backstage and this person and that person and,
Who did you have like some memorable conversations with? I mean, you said the Rolling Stones. I'm like, what was Mick Jagger like? Did he yell at you? I mean, like, what? Yeah. Like, what, like,
It was so surreal. And then after a while, I was just like, forget it.
Yeah.
Right.
But one of my favorite run-ins was with Bill Murray. I met Bill Murray behind the stage in Paris. I was like 15 years old, and it was just me and him hanging out there. And he goes, so where do you live? And I was like, New Jersey. And he goes, oh, you're going to grow up and move to not Vegas, but Atlantic City to make a life, start a life for yourself. And I was like, well, I never thought of that, but it's not a bad idea.
That's awesome.
But he was just so nice and welcoming. And there's a lot of very kind celebrities out there.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard a lot of great Bill Murray stories.
I think he gets a kick out of being a character. You know what I mean? I think he gets he like having a cameo in someone's life.
Yeah.
I think he's definitely that person.
Henry Winkler was another one that I met that always stuck with me because I was little as a kid. And he was so kind and like, hey.
And he was fun. And he is one of the nicest guys.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So high school, is that when you started maybe your own bands in high school or?
I ended up going to 3 different high schools. So I was in Flemington, went to high school there, went through all my school, and then I moved in with my father, and he thought it'd be a good idea for me to go to boarding school in New Hampshire. So I went to a boarding school in New Hampshire, raised a little hell over there.
I was going to say,
was that kind of a life change? I mean, from your talking about it right now, you're growing up in the house that your dad grew up in.
Yes.
I'm sure it was a little bit more of a modest upbringing.
Yes.
Now your dad is in the biggest rock band in the world. You're going to now live with him.
Yes.
He's sending you to boarding schools. Is this like a big change of lifestyle for you?
It was.
Yeah.
I was kicking and screaming a little bit, you know, because whether it's consciously or subconsciously, I always wanted to be closer to my father. And now, we're living together, we're doing it. And then he meets a new girl and, they get married. And I felt like I was getting the boot to some degree.
Sure. And were your parents married or not married?
They were married, but they got divorced when I was like 5.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So now you're off at boarding school.
Yes.
And what's that like?
It was crazy. It was like in the middle of nowhere, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And what were the other kids like? I mean, were they
all kinds?
Yeah.
Like it was really like the DMV of kids, man.
Yeah.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
DMV of kids.
Yeah. It was
was it like the holdovers? I just want to know.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I mean, growing up in Beverly Hills, most kids went to public school when we were growing up. It's different now, but most kids were going to public school. And you were really only going to private school if you were some kind of behavioral problem or
super smart and your parents were
super
like
smart and
bougie.
your parents were super bougie.
Right.
But pretty much, even if your parents were wealthy or successful, 90% of us all went to public school in Beverly Hills.
Because it was small.
It was small.
It was a very
It was
small
considered
district.
a good education. And it was better, So
now we know.
Did you guys go to school together?
We did.
We did.
Get
we
outta
did.
We
Yeah.
did.
We went both
He's older.
Yeah. We both went to Beverly High. So New Hampshire, boarding school.
Yep.
Getting in trouble or not getting in trouble? What's going on?
I started off pretty good. It was co-ed.
Yeah. Just got to get that out.
Yeah. But so I'm 16, turning 17 in boarding school.
Yeah.
Up until then, like, good boy. You know what I mean? Don't drink, don't smoke, nothing like that. Get out of boarding school, drink, smoke, trouble.
Yeah.
Almost got kicked out of school a couple times. Like, it was something.
Sounds about right.
So,
Every kid I know that went to boarding school has like, well, we used to do this thing. That's really cool. And I'm like, wait, what?
No, boarding school was where you...
It's where you learn all the bad
things. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah, it was like prison. It's like you figured out how to like, contraband and like weird shit like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounded like fun.
That was my first band, is we started a band up in boarding school.
Okay, yeah.
And somebody came up to me and was like, hey, we're going to start this band. Do you want to play keyboards? I was like, sure, let's give it a whirl. So we were called the Beefy Burritos.
I like it. And had you had like, did you take lessons as a kid or just kind of like learn by ear?
A little bit. I took, my grandmother had me do lessons because she had my father do lessons.
Yeah, wow.
Again, like I was really little. And I think because I was little, I was like, I don't really want to be doing this. Like I want to be out playing and doing other stuff. So when I had the chance, I like stopped doing that. So I had some lessons as a kid, sort of, But again, like I fell back to, I can kind of play what I hear.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it kind of worked out.
So if you hear a song, you can pretty much pick it up and play it?
More or less.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
What a cool thing. And from what I saw with some other people too. So you're 17, 18 years old. You can play what you hear. This must be nice for the girls. Like, right? Like, I mean, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking
what all girls are looking for.
No, are you kidding?
Player.
Are you kidding? Sit down.
Look, it's a good skill. I told my son, he plays the drums. I'm like, this is going to come in handy one day when you have a crush.
But you got a piano or a guitar.
Yeah.
You can.
Oh, let me just.
Yeah, exactly.
Just don't
right? Am I wrong?
Yeah. I guess to be a musician is helpful for sure when you're younger.
Yeah. He's modest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So do you graduate high school?
Yes.
Boarding school? Or you went back to?
Went to a third high school, which was a private school, suit and tie, because my dad read my yearbook and was like, well, you're not going back there. So I went to another.
Wait, what did he read in the yearbook? That's what I want to know. What was in the yearbook?
Well, there was some reference to like
the good stuff.
I know. Come on, give us something.
Give us something good.
There was some references to like, don't let it stop snowing in the summertime, things like. And I was like, oh my goodness. So my yearbook did me in.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
And
at that point, I was like, I want to go back. Like it turned out to be a fun year.
So off to a new school.
New school.
And probably got into some fun there too.
Of course.
I mean, no matter, that's how we are. You know, you're going to find it no matter where.
And I'm like a chameleon. Like I'm good with, I made so many friends in high school and all three that I would get confused who goes to what school and this. And I was never really in a clique. Like I was friends with.
Yep.
Yeah.
What was the path after high school?
College.
Yep.
So I did a couple years at Brookdale College. I studied architecture. And then I started working construction with my uncle.
Oh, wow.
So me and my uncle had like a siding and roofing
Your
business.
mom's brother or your dad's
Yes,
brother?
my mom's brother.
Yeah.
And so we're doing construction and it was some work. You know what I mean? Like, and especially roofing is like, that's a...
Sun's beating down on you.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking to myself, I was like, this is crazy. Like, I gotta find a way out of this.
Yeah.
Even though like there were some great moments and it was fun to work with Carrie and stuff like that. And I was designing things in architecture school. So I was designing like big, huge decks for houses. And then we'd go build it and like some additions and kitchens. So that was kind of fun to like design stuff and then build it, you know?
Yeah.
But still, like I saw myself like, if I stay here, I'm going to get caught in this.
Yep.
So my father moved out to California, something he always wanted to do. And so he had a house in Woodland Hills and I had like a place to land.
Yeah.
So I set myself up to come out to California.
What year was that?
92.
Okay.
Oh, that's when we were hanging out.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I flew out in 91. I got like a driver's license or something to kind of start my residency and stuff so I could slip into school. And so, it was cool.
Where did you go to school out here?
Santa Monica.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, forever.
Yeah.
I went to Santa Monica College and just studied all kinds of stuff.
We were probably there at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was at SMC for a number of years.
Yeah. I loved it. I took photography and graphic design and, all kinds of stuff. It was kind of fun.
And playing in bands at the same time or no?
No. I didn't start playing a band again till maybe 8 years later. Something like that. Yeah.
When you started hanging out in LA, because people do end up in these weird little pockets of people, were you kind of drawn to like the music scene, or were like you hanging out with Dan and all the actor kids? Like, did you have like a group of people that you were hanging out with that have,
Well, funny enough, like I came out here and my dad had this killer, beautiful house in Woodland Hills. Just awesome.
Yep.
Too many bedrooms for himself, He let me stay there rent-free. Big pool looking out over the valley. Just stunning. And I started working as a motorcycle courier. So I bought myself a 650 turbo. I think it was a Yamaha.
Was this your first bike?
First bike out here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I had an Interceptor 750 in New Jersey that I used to scream around town.
My toes are curling as you guys are talking about motorbikes.
Well, listen, I'm going to let you finish your story.
4 wheels or no wheels?
But Jason definitely was a big part of me getting my bike.
Jesus Christ, Jason. My husband, same thing.
Yeah,
I can't.
Yeah. He has a beautiful Harley that he got from his dad. We met for lunch one day, and he pulled up on this gorgeous bike and started telling me the history of it and telling me about riding it. And I'm like, that sounds really interesting.
Jesus.
And then we started watching The Long Way Around.
Yeah.
Right,
you watched it too, right? Yeah.
I love that show.
All right, so you're on this bike.
I'm a motorcycle courier, and most of those guys are all English, and they're crazy, and they love to drink. So all three of those things I like very much.
Yeah.
So pretty quickly, I became friends with this English guy, Loads. He brought me over. He goes, hey, all my buddies are here from England. Come meet them. And they lived in this house in Venice. So it was like a 3-bedroom house with 12 dudes in it. There was like 15 motorcycles lined up outside of this house, a tire on the roof, beer bottles in the front yard. And I was like, that's where I want to go right there.
Yeah.
Sign me up for that. So I moved out of my dad's house.
How old are you at this point?
Yeah.
20?
23.
Yeah.
Moved out of your dad's house in with the English drinker courier.
Yes. To sleep on the floor on a mattress with a bunch of hard drinking English dudes.
Best time in your life, right?
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. Yeah.
So what was that? Yeah, tell us more. Tell us more about these English blokes.
It's funny.
And what were their aspirations? See, it's memory lane. That's what we should call this damn podcast.
A variety of aspirations. My one good friend that I'm still very close to, Adrian Packett, became like the head motorcycle mechanic at Triumph Motorcycles.
Oh, wow.
He lives up in Topanga right now, and he works on bikes, and he designed wheels for bikes now.
Is he still a crazy Englishman?
He is. 3 of the fellas didn't make it. 2 of them died from alcoholism. Pretty vicious, awful deaths. Along those lines, I'm happy to say that I've been sober for 12 and a half years.
Oh, congrats. So I didn't,
that's the thing that Jason and I figured out that we had in common pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I was a lover of the good times, and it was a lot of fun for a long time until it wasn't.
And now what are you doing? You've gone from Woodland Hills to Venice. And for those of you who are not familiar with the mapping of LA, Woodland Hills, as far as if you live in Hollywood or Venice, is what people sometimes say geographically out there, right?
It's a big move. It's a shift.
But so is Venice if you're in the valley. So it's like this weird.
It's interesting. It's a
LA is
juxtaposition. I mean, you go from what you've described,
and they're very
the
different.
Beautiful home in Woodland Hills.
Right.
I'm sure your dad had a nice house, like you said, with a pool looking over the valley. But Venice is by the beach.
And slightly rougher. And back then, for sure,
totally.
was not. I mean, there was a couple cool moneyed people that lived there, like Angelica Houston.
But it's a different scene.
But it was not.
Yeah. Totally different.
You're right. And in the early 90s in Venice was like...
Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, there was like guns going off. And on the weekends there were stabbings and stuff.
And now it's not a great spot now. I mean, it's
still
a friend of
dodgy.
mine just sold his multi-million-dollar house because they had... I mean, it so much crime and homeless and
I call it lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
It's like you've got this great neighborhood, and it is a great neighborhood, but the houses are on top of each other, and there is a crime problem, and it's home. And I'm like, why are you spending $4 million on a house when there's like someone sleeping in
and they
child's
actually
jungle
moved.
gym?
They actually moved from Venice to Encino, which is like next door to Woodland Hills.
It's we're getting out of the city, you know?
Exactly right. Exactly right.
So Venice is a fun. I mean, I'm sure you spent some time at the Circle Bar.
Of course.
Yeah, there's like a couple like iconic Venice hangs. What was, because it is a different scene and it is very different than Hollywood or Beverly Hills. What was it like hanging out? Because I knew a couple Venice folks, you know, Cesario, and we'll talk about that later. There's a couple people that I just remember hanging out with in the 90s that were fantastic. But Venice, you know?
I got what I thought was at the time a pretty spectacular job as I stopped doing the courier stuff because it was crazy. It was very dangerous. And we were like doing these runs to downtown with court filings and just, it was nuts.
I also feel like there's people that are watching that might be younger and they're like, what is the motorcycle courier? So back in the like 80s and 90s, we would call a messenger service. If you needed to you didn't have a fax machine, you didn't have emails.
Right.
You needed somebody to send a document or sign a document. You put it in an envelope. You called up Jason and his crazy English crew and they rushed it over in between traffic on the freeway. I mean, what was that great movie with Kevin Bacon?
Well, it was a bike messenger in New York.
Yes.
They used to have bike messengers in New York.
Yeah.
But,
So I just wanted to like put the reference of why being a courier is fucking dangerous.
So after the courier job, what do we do?
Rentals on the beach. So I rented bicycles and rollerblades on Venice Beach for at least 5 years, 4 or 5 years, something like that.
And I bet that was right up your alley.
It was right up my alley.
I picture yourself, we're rolling big fat dubs at the time.
Absolutely. Drinking, smoking, just having the best time.
Hanging out on the beach, renting bikes.
Hanging out on the beach, surfing, riding the bikes.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Right up your alley.
Yeah. And this Jason Heath, who I play in a band with, that's where I met him. He was also working.
So you've known him a long time.
I have.
Yeah. We're going to plug your band, Jason Heath and the Greedy Souls. We're going to get into that even
I love that. So now you're in LA. So and you're having a good time and you're renting bikes. But what was like, did you have like, I got to do something. I got to figure out, like, I got to either follow some creative passion. Like, what did you start getting into?
Unfortunately, my creative passion was mostly drinking and smoking weed. Like I really like looking back, like, I was short on aspirations. You know what I mean? I was cool just cruising.
Yeah.
And were you going on tour at all with the East Band at all during that time or not? Really? Yeah. So a little bit of that too. Yeah.
But that was tough too because my father got sober when I started drinking.
Okay.
So there was a little bit of
sure. You know what I mean? Sure. And let me ask you this. Was he kind of like, well, Jason's going to have his own path and figure it out? Or was he like, dude, you're doing the wrong thing?
Mostly you're on your own path.
Yeah.
You know?
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. I've known Jason, like I said, 10 years.
Yeah.
And we've really never talked about this.
True.
Ever. Right? And I'm putting him on the spot.
I know. And he's being humble.
That's the thing about it.
I mean, like.
He is the most humble.
Obviously, you've got access to one of the biggest superstars in America. Like, what was that like?
It's fun to talk about it because I normally don't.
Right.
You know, there's people that have known me for a very long time and there's still I'm sure there's a number of people that don't even know my father plays in the band.
Yeah.
It's just a non-subject unless it comes up, or you know what I mean. I have a couple things hanging in my house. In 2008, my father passed away from melanoma, which was really, really difficult. A lot harder than I thought it was going to be. But the moral of that story is that now that some time has passed too, like I look back at this as just like such a gift, you know, and it really was. And like when the Born in the USA tour started, like I remember I was in the room and the tour started and the record's like going through the roof. So I'm watching like these guys, like I have a front row seat to see what Bruce and the band became. You know what I mean? And that's all kinds of stuff. It's like professionally and as players and some ego and, you know, especially from my father and stuff too. You know what I mean? Like how he changed as a person, becoming uber famous overnight and stuff like that.
Again, you and I really have never talked about any of this stuff, but in knowing you, you know, and doing some research for this, you know, I read Bruce gave the eulogy at your dad's funeral. Honestly, I read that eulogy. It's on Rolling Stone. I don't even know if you know that it's online or not, but it is so touching. And like I said, I cried at the end of it. The relationship between your dad and Bruce was super, super close. They were close friends. I mean, they had a brotherhood.
Was he like kind of like an uncle?
He's kind of mostly to himself.
Right.
Like Bruce shines the most when he walks out on stage. I think it's a big reason why he likes to do 3.5-hour concerts. I think it's a big reason why when he goes on tour, it's hard for him to come off. He keeps it going for years. Like the beauty of that man for sure is him standing on a stage performing for people.
And he's had you
for sure
come up and perform with him, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What was that like?
Spectacular.
Yeah. There must have been a world of emotions, I'm imagining, you know?
Yeah.
Missing your dad.
Yeah.
For one moment or two, filling those shoes. Your own kind of musical prowess. I mean, I can only imagine the rush of emotions that you must have felt. I mean, you able to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. The first time was in, I think it was 2009. And me and my friend Jason went back to New Jersey to actually grab some of my dad's stuff. I picked up his motorcycle and some other things, and we were driving across country. And the band was playing in Milwaukee at the time for the 105th Harley Davidson thing.
Even better.
Yeah.
So they were the headliner for that thing.
I love it.
The night before, we were in St. Paul, and we were hanging out with Tom Morello, and Rage Against the Machine was playing for the Republican National Convention.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Which was spectacular.
Wait, what?
Tom Morello, the Rage Against the Machine played for the Republican National Convention?
You mean,
well, like
against
yes.
like during.
Next door to
yes.
Jessica's dad was Rage's manager for a period of time. I don't know if we talked
and I,
about
like you, did not really, a lot of people did not know this about me growing up. So I get it. Yeah.
We were watching the show, and it was the first time I've seen the band since my father passed. So it was definitely emotional. And then Bruce got on stage, and he's like, Jason, come on up here. And I was like, what? And it was like...
You didn't know ahead of time?
No.
Wow.
That's awesome.
No. And so my friend's like, I think Bruce is calling you up on the stage over there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right. So, you know, I walked up, and they had an accordion like this, and I put the accordion on and came out and played Sandy with them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, wow.
In front of just like tens of thousands of people.
And that was the song that your dad chose to play in one of his last shows, right? Isn't that?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it's even more emotionally big. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That was big too. You came and you got to give the speech for your dad, and you did an amazing job. I listen.
Oh,
I was proud of you. I'm like, that's my buddy. He's awesome.
He has said the nicest things about you.
Let's talk about your band. Let's talk about Jason Heath.
What are you up to now? Like, what's going on?
Oh, that's a great subject. I'm happy to talk about that. So my friend I was telling you about, Jason Heath, that we became buddies in the 90s. Renting rollerblades and having fun in Venice. He started out in a punk band, writing his own music in the 90s called Spinewire. And then, anyway, long story short, like he came over to my house one day. I had an accordion hanging on the wall. And he's like, hey, will you play that on a song I'm writing? I'm like, yeah, sure, okay.
Yeah.
Hadn't picked up an instrument in like 10 years. Yeah. So it was a little baby accordion too. Like it's almost a play thing. and brought that into Universal Studios and played accordion on this track. And then the keyboard player they had, the band at the time was called the Telegenic. He left, and so I kind of slid into that spot.
Yep.
And then, started learning the songs.
It's kind of cool. You don't really hear too many rock bands that have an accordion player.
No.
And his dad did it, and now he's doing it. It's awesome. It's really, really cool. You know what I mean? And then, I don't even know what this is, but again, doing research, what's the glockenspiel?
That's a good question.
Your dad played the glockenspiel, right?
And I own the one he plays. Like I have it sitting in storage.
What is that? I don't even know what it looks like.
It's like a xylophone, but it's different sound.
And Jason, and you guys have some shows coming up?
No. We're wrapping up a record right now. Yeah. So I've been in the band for 22 years. It's never been better. I mean, it's always been great.
Yeah.
And cool different people through the years playing with us. But right now, like the band has never been better.
That's
awesome.
So
fun to play. And
Are you touring like after this? Like, do you guys tour quite a bit?
We usually tour like once a year. We'll go out for a couple weeks and like spin around the United States.
That's
usually into Canada and come home.
And so what are who's the songwriter? Do you write songs too?
No. We kind of write the music together, but Jason Heath writes the lyrics and stuff and kind of comes in with a basic melody, and then we all jump in and
oh, nice. I want to hear it now.
Do you guys have like a Spotify or like a YouTube or an Instagram or something where people can check it out?
Yeah,
for sure.
Us.
Yeah, tell us.
Yeah.
Where can people check it out?
Jason Heath and the Greedy Souls. So I think you can find it on most platforms. We have a website you can check out with a bunch of videos.
Yeah, man, we want to get you some plays.
I filmed and edited a few of the videos.
Yeah.
So go check it out.
Yeah. Graphic design, let's talk about it.
Graphic design is fun. It took me a while to be able to be an artist for a living.
Yep.
Like there were definitely some growing pains along the way. But I ended up becoming the art director for a tequila company called California Tequila.
Nice.
Awesome.
So that's been a lot of fun. We go to Mexico, we film promotions, and I've designed a full line of tequila. Then the guy recently started a whiskey company called Knuckle Noggin.
That's a great name.
That is a great name.
We turned the label upside down on the bottles, and they're in Vons and all over the place, but you can see those.
Yeah.
The best part about my graphic design and film business is that it's different. Every day, I never have the same Monday, ever. So my weeks are, I'm filming something, I'm editing something, I'm designing something, I'm delivering something, I'm traveling somewhere. The most rewarding thing I do in my business right now is I teach film and editing for the Capo Center. So these are like kids that are kind of coming out of prison or having a hard time. We built a studio on 3rd Street near the Grove.
Yep.
Wow.
And it was started by Jail Guitar Doors by Wayne Kramer from the MC5, who recently passed away, unfortunately. But he started this school that we're trying to use as a model to use like across the country. So rather than putting kids in prison, we want them to come to our school.
Yeah.
So if you check out jailguitardoors.org, you'll kind of learn all about it. But it's super rewarding, man. And it's like, if you meet these kids where they're at, man. And it's like, we have guys there now that came in a couple of years ago as students, and now they're teachers.
Yep.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
And then we also run classes in the prisons where they go in and have music classes in there. And then these kids are going back to the prisons that they were in and teaching kids, how to play. And it's so incredibly powerful. I can't even tell you.
That's awesome.
That is great.
Yeah,
and it's building community.
And
I mean, that's
for sure.
That's awesome. I know that after your dad passed away, you got very involved with the Melanoma Society or
Melanoma Research Alliance.
So we want to talk about that. We want to shed some light on that and talk about how important it is to get screening, how important all that stuff is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When my father was heading out, I spent like the last 3 months with him when he was sick. It was important for him to, one, like bring awareness to people about like the dangers from the sun.
Yep.
And also try to raise money for research for melanoma. So together we designed a website called, I forget what it's called now. It was like the Danny Federici melanoma something or other. And so we finished designing it. When he passed away, we hit launch, like literally the next day.
But you're on the board of the Melanoma Society, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah, yeah. And what does that entail? Do you work with them? What do you?
It's a few board meetings every year.
Yeah.
Yep. We just had another board meeting last week, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
But the Melanoma Research Alliance is second to the government for funding for research for melanoma.
Wow.
Yeah.
I actually did not know you could pass away from
Yo,
melanoma.
it's serious.
I know both my dad and I get checked all the time.
Yep.
So he's had things.
It's one of the most
Taken-
aggressive
yeah.
cancers
Yep.
there is.
Yep.
Wow.
That's why early detection is so important.
Yeah, it's important to get screened once a year or twice a year. Once a year.
Once a year is
Yeah.
good.
And sunscreen
Screen.
and hats.
Yep.
I'm now that girl that wears a hat all the
Oh, yeah.
time. And just because I think it is important because people do forget, like most kids don't get sunburned like we did because they are getting slathered.
Yep.
But I remember I had my nose is still scarred from a terrible sunburn I had when I was 8 years old.
You know what's funny is I went to the dermatologist right before I went on my Sturgis trip, and he told me you got to carry a hat in your saddlebag. You have to have it. And so I do. I've been carrying I carry a baseball cap in my saddlebag. But no matter what I do, no matter how much sunscreen I put on, I always get the glasses tan line. I can't help it.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It is your head though, because I think a lot of guys forget, like when you're out and your head is exposed or you don't have a lot of hair on your head, you are going to fry your head.
Yeah, that's it.
Like golfing and stuff, all that stuff. So that's great. I mean, that's wonderful that you're doing that.
But again, like if you can catch it early, like, and it's usually when it's a spot that's kind of like irregular, it's not quite a circle and different colors, like go get it checked out. Because if you can grab it early, you're good to go.
Yep.
But if you miss it or you wait and stuff like that, you could run into some real problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of, I just got a colonoscopy. So there's that transition. Also, early detection is key.
Yeah.
So I did like that little, like, you're going to feel asleep. I was like, oh, it's like powering down. It was amazing.
Yeah. You and Michael Jackson.
It is weird growing up around all that stuff. I'm sure there were moments where you're like, what the fuck is it?
Listen, she and I both grew up in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kids who grew up with similar backgrounds to what you came from, and they're not coming in with the humility and the respect.
I think my grandmother did a lot of good, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She was, my grandmother was Polish. My grandfather was Italian. And they adopted my Irish father.
Yeah.
So I'm a Federici with 0 Italian.
I was going to ask if you were
100% Irish.
One last thing I want to touch on because it's my favorite. Are you a Sopranos fan?
Yes.
So that must have been a trip when Steve Van Zandt was on The Sopranos. I mean, this is a guy you probably know your whole life, right?
Yeah.
You know him as a guitar player.
Yeah.
And now he's the consigliere on The Sopranos.
And he's good.
He's good for the best.
And he's really
He was
good.
great. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
What a trip, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Quick story with that. I think it was 2003, 2004, something like that. The band was on tour.
Yeah.
Steve was in The Sopranos.
Yeah.
And it worked out that the season finale was one night after a show. So they rented like the ballroom downstairs.
Yeah.
And then the whole band and all the family and stuff like that, after the show, went into this, had pizza and wings and stuff like that, and watched the finale of Sopranos.
That's
with
amazing.
Steve.
Awesome.
It was pretty cool.
Amazing.
You know, I don't know if I ever told you this. So, my dad was a business manager and had a lot of entertainment clients. And for like 5 minutes, Steve was one of his clients.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I want to know that story.
Steve's the guy that walked me into the Melanoma Research Alliance. Steve and Bruce's manager.
Yeah.
Called me up because I started that website, which was very successful.
Yep.
And they said, hey, you want to make this, you want to go big? And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
So they walked me into Leon and Deborah Black, who started the Melanoma Research Alliance. And I sat down with them in the boardroom and they're like, come on in. We built a website for the Danny Fund. They put me on the board of directors. And
that's awesome.
That's been like 14 years now.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, give us a couple things that we can like our audience can go look at some of this stuff.
melanomaresearchalliance.org.
Okay.
Jason Heath and the Greedy Souls.
There we go. I want to make sure you get that one in there.
.com. Jailguitardoors.org.
I got to tell you something. I've known you, like I said, 10 years. I feel like I learned more about you now than I have in the last 10 years. You know,
I want to sit down with you and like interview you.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah. He's got some story. Well, you can just start watching the podcast. You'll get all of that.
I'll do that. I'll do that.
No, but
By the way,
he's got
we
some
didn't
stories.
say David Faustino's name once in this.
Except for I just was making sure that's not how you knew him. Jason, you are so delightful and such a sweet soul, I can tell. And it's just nice to meet a friend of Dan's that he's spoken so highly of you.
Can't thank you enough, Jason.
Really, I really appreciate it. It's
and
nice
you are
to meet
humble,
guys.
but you are a good guy and you're doing a lot of really awesome things for people. And I think that is, a testament to your upbringing and the people you had around you.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining us on 90who10. For you out there, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, tell your friends, tell your parents, tell your grandparents, dogs, babies, whoever. I swear a lot, maybe not babies. But thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next time. And that's it. Peace out.
Peace out.